Welcome to Through the Rough, a place where real life people share the real life experiences that have shaped us into who we are today.
All right.
I'm going right into this. For most people who think they know what it means to wear a badge, to serve and protect, and to walk the line between chaos and control. But what they don't see is what happens when the job gets under your skin, when the weight of it changes who you are, and when a single moment, a gunshot, a choice, a mistake, alters the course of your life forever. Today we're sitting down with fucking A. See? And let's continue. I'll have to go back and do that over again.
Take two.
Son of a bitch.
Sometimes that happens.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to
Welcome.
Through the Rough. I'm Sam, and I'm here with
Lindsay.
and a very near dear friend of mine, Matt. Matt's been in law enforcement for 29 years. Recently retired, and now living that dream life of the retired guy. I think you spend most of your time knitting sweaters and stuff, don't you?
Yeah, total straight fixed income. Me and the old ladies, we just hang out.
That's right. Down at the local nursing home.
Doing your puzzles and watching your shows, your
lot-
programs.
Yes,
A lot less chaotic, right?
a little bit. You know, the little guy keeps me busy. So.
Your backgammon game's gotten better?
Yes.
So, what we're going to talk about today, Matt actually, again, was in law enforcement for about 29 years, almost 30 years of his life, which creates an identity for a person. We're going to talk about what you've gone through in those 29 years, and primarily an instance where you took a bullet and how that kind of redirected and shaped your life, correct?
Well, a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. Matt's a pretty modest fellow. Well, let's get started, Matt. The floor is yours. Start us off.
Well, I guess the beginning of it, my parents met, who is my DNA dad, if you will. And I guess 9 months later, I popped out. So my real father was retired Navy, but he stayed overseas in Japan. So I was born in Japan on the Navy base in Sasebo. We lived there for a little bit. We moved to Okinawa for a little bit. And then probably from 2 to 4, we lived in Subic Bay, Philippines. Navy base area. I don't know exactly what he did. He was a CB'er in the Navy. He did a couple tours in Nam. My mom said they wanted him to go back, and that's when he said no. He didn't think he'd make it back. Of course, this was prior to me being born.
Yeah.
So, but he was an alcoholic, catted around a lot. So by the time I was 4, my older brother was 8. My mom had enough, packed us up, moved us back to Chicago, the south suburbs of Chicago, where she grew up. My grandparents were still there, her sisters were still there. So, and from 4 to 10, we lived in Cal City, Illinois, and Hammond, Indiana.
Yeah, here. Just adjust it and get it in there.
Yeah, I'm trying.
There you go.
Not used to talking to mics. So, and while we were up there, more around when I was 9 or something, my mom met who I consider my dad. This guy is my dad. And at the time, he was a boilermaker at the steel mills, but he applied for Chicago Fire. And at the time, early 80s, Houston was doing a huge hiring for police.
Okay.
Because you had the huge oil boom in Houston and Texas at the time. And so a lot of population was moving to Houston. So they needed more officers. So there was a huge hiring push. Well, HPD called first. So
Houston Police Department?
Yeah,
Oh,
Houston
okay.
Police. Yeah, Houston, Texas called first. So we moved to Houston when I was 10.
Right on. And you were there ever since.
Yeah, until last year when we moved to Baton Rouge because of my wife's work.
Yeah. Being down in Houston, you guys suffer like a lot of the hurricane and
Well, yeah. I mean, we weren't there our first year, maybe our second year there, we had Hurricane Alicia hit us.
Yeah.
So, and then of course everything since then.
Yeah.
So
what was your childhood like down there in Houston?
it was fine. I mean, of course, back then we lived on the north side of Houston in the north suburbs, part of area they call Westfield Spring area. Back then it was real affluent, which we weren't.
What do you mean by that?
A lot of kids did not go without, a
Oh.
lot of rich suburbs,
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, my dad was an officer back in the early 80s, so they didn't make much. My mom was a secretary at the time before she went through nursing school. So, I mean, we didn't go without. We ate every day, and but the high school, kids turned 16, they got new cars.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I was on the swim team in high school. I had to be there at 6 a.m, so I got there on my bicycle. So I mean,
How was that? Like seeing, kids getting cars and you're on your bike. Was that hard as a kid then?
well, nah, I mean, I didn't really care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was the thing when I graduated high school was I'm not going to be, I want to make a job where I'm going to make money. So, I can afford these big houses and, and go on big trips and do all the stuff. When my
Chase that American dream.
yeah, live.
So as a kid, it did influence you of like you wanted that yourself
Yeah, I
somewhat.
mean, and in a high school, I went to my prom. That was the only dance I went to. I didn't, I was kind of, I don't want to say a loner. I had friends. It's just, I didn't go to parties. I didn't hang out a lot. I swam twice a day and then I started doing judo and, it was just, I was concentrated on that. And, I wasn't in the in crowd, of course, because I didn't play football. I didn't play baseball. I mean, of course, in the suburbs, it was real cliquish. And, and I just went along my way. And then so when I graduated high school, I was like, I was better at the math and science, and so I was like, "I'm gonna be an accountant, CFO, or do something where I'm gonna make some good money,"
Uh-huh.
An accountant. And the man, what
I
I know about
I
you, I
know.
couldn't imagine you sitting in a cubicle.
Oh, yeah, and so, so I took accounting 101 in college, and I went to a community college, and I was cross-eyed, and I went, "There's no way I can do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
There's no way." And, of course, growing up, my dad would come home, tell us his war stories that he would do, his foot chases, his car chases, the type of calls he would do.
TJ Hooker.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Hell
throwing
yeah, buddy.
yeah, throwing the baton and knocking people down. Yeah, because that really works. And,
Simon and Simon.
yeah, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Those are, I'm dating myself here. That's some old
Yeah,
school.
Cagney Lacey,
Yep.
Yeah.
all that good stuff for me, And, growing up, though, like, my dad was on, a divisional tag team, so he was able to do, like, plainclothes stuff,
What does that mean, a divisional tag team?
so each station and of course, my experiences are just for Houston. So
Okay.
how it might be done up here in Omaha is
Yeah.
completely different. How it's done different in Chicago. Every department's different in how they handle things and what their squads are. It might be based off of something like LAPD might have, and we just call it something.
Yeah.
LAPD had those old crash squads, and then we would call them like hotspot squads. And kind of similar. They would go out there and target the high crime areas,
Yeah.
be visibly present. They're not really running calls, but they're out there proactively chasing the bad guy.
Yeah, as long as they show a presence in the area, presence alone should in turn drive
help-
crime down,
Help deter by far.
or at least make them more sneaky.
Yeah, definitely by far.
Yeah,
by
let's
far,
be
yeah.
honest
have
here.
have to work harder to commit their crime.
But some are blatant about it too.
Yeah.
because they run. And a story. So my dad would work plainclothes, so he would target the area that he worked, which was the station at the time was called South Central. It's still called South Central, and I ended up when I got on. But so part of town called the Third Ward. Houston's areas are broken up in wards, WARD.
Yeah.
And so we had the Third Ward and the Second Ward in South Central, and so primarily Third Ward's 100%, not 100%, but primarily black.
Okay.
So you had the open drug market and stuff. And so he would go buy like street level dope and do prostitutions and pick up whores and stuff like that. Well, he picked me up one day. I don't know how.
Your dad?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
As a police officer,
yeah.
like undercover kind of.
Well,
Right.
yeah, he came up. I had a doctor's appointment or something. And so he came up to pull me out of school. And, he's in plain clothes and, he'll probably be upset I'm going to tell this story. But he pretty much pulls up to a corner with a whore and makes a whore case with me in the car.
What?
And he's like, hey, this is my nephew from out of town, because my dad's only 15 years older than me. So, so I was 10 and he
Yeah.
He's
was
only 25.
Yeah. So, he's not that much old, and so he makes this nasty crack whore, and, hairy legs, missing teeth, wearing a tube dress and just, and he's like, hey, this is my nephew. I'm trying to get him, hooked up and of course, makes the deal. And then we drive away and then they call in a patrol car and arrest her. And of course, I'm just sitting in the passenger seat.
No idea what the hell is going on.
Well, I do, but I'm laughing. I'm like, and here's another reason why I can't be an undercover cop. I can't keep a straight face, apparently,
Oh my goodness.
And you said you were around 10,
No, I was probably like 14.
okay,
Yeah, I was
Okay.
older,
but still, you're still like,
Yeah. And so, and of course, that's a huge no-no.
Yeah.
You can't be that with me in the car.
But it's
Yeah.
different back in the 80s.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, by far.
Yeah, there's a lot has changed.
as a 14-year-old, and I mean, you said you were laughing. Were you just like kind of had you ever seen that before?
No.
No, so just like that was your first encounter of a prostitute and
Yeah.
that whole how it works. And
Yeah, pretty much. I guess I learned from that later. But
I mean,
Took
if
the
you're
good
gonna
tutelage from my dad.
I guess
Yes,
if you're
yeah.
gonna experience it the first time, it's better than what like, watching kind of on the outskirts watching it, then I don't know.
To being right in the middle
Be
of
in
it.
the middle of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And so after that, and I came home and I was like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to do this at college. There's no way I'm going to do this for the rest of my life as a CPA or whatever,
Yep.
or CFO if I got that high or whatever. And so my dad goes, hey, why don't you go do a ride along? Because I was 18, 19 at the time, and go do a ride along, not with me, go ride with, a buddy of mine and see what you think. So I rode the whole shift with a good buddy of my dad's. And of course, who I knew ever since, I was a young kid,
Yeah.
and in a part of town in Houston that we call Gulfton Ghettos. So
Gulfed ghettos?
yeah.
Okay.
So the streets Gulfton and Rampart, and it's huge apartment complexes. So these huge apartment complexes were built in the 80s, and, they're professionals and stuff. And then when the housing market tanked, then they became Section 8. And so now it's, highly Hispanic, undocumented and Section 8 housing and all that. So I'm riding with his buddy in this area, and we're chasing this crack fiend's running from us, and he's chasing him in his car, and the guy's running through a field. I'm like, man, you're gonna hit him. He's like, screw him. You shouldn't run. And I'm like, and I was hyper, active, and that was the other thing of. So after the end of the thing, I was like, oh yeah, this is me. This is for me, man.
So you just knew instantly. It
The
was
adrenaline
I knew
rush
right
and
then that, that adrenaline rush and being active, I'm going to be out and about doing things instead of sitting at a desk looking at numbers. And so, yeah, I came home and told my parents, okay, yeah, I guess I'm going to be a cop,
what was your other than the physical active and the adrenaline rush at that time in your life? You're 18 years old. Was it any of it about making a difference in a positive way at that time?
Didn't even think about it. And so like a buddy of mine, he told me this, and he goes, there's 4 types of people that become cops. And I think there's 5. So you have your legacy people, which were like me and him.
Yeah.
We had family, and so we became cops ourselves. And then there's the ones that were always, when you played cops and robber as kids,
Yeah.
they were always the cops. They wanted to be a cop from the get-go. And, we had guys that were like that.
Yeah.
And then you had the ones that military.
Yeah.
It's just a natural progression. They
Yep.
get out of the military, you go to a paramilitary organization, you're back in uniform. The 4th one was, I just need a job.
Yeah.
And police are always hiring,
Yeah.
Yeah.
especially now. And and some turned out to be really, really good. Some turned out, hey, man, it's just a job. I'm getting a paycheck. And they just go out and do whatever. They might not be the best officer, but at least
I
they're
was
there.
gonna say, would you say when it comes to bad apples, like every organization has bad apples, but when it comes to bad apples in your experience, are those bad apples generally the guys that just needed a job?
Not necessarily. I don't
Oh.
think so. It all has to do with the person,
Yeah.
because there's been, bad apples where they're legacies.
Oh, okay.
And then there's been bad apples just because they're bad apples. Just, I guess, the temptation sometimes,
Do you think
What's
it's temptation with having control? Like they have maybe
Well,
the
yeah,
ego
and that's
playing
the
like I
5th one
have
that would.
power
Yeah,
and
let's go to that 5th guy.
Yeah.
Here we go.
And the 5th one would have been like the guy that got picked on.
The small dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he
No.
becomes a cop, in a sense, get back, because
Yeah.
now he's got that power. Now he has the authority
yeah.
to do stuff. So, he kind of might be more the jerk officer all the time.
Yeah.
But, you kind of go through phases too, though, depending on, I went through phases where I was kind of more of a jerk than I wasn't. And then, when you first got on, everybody went to jail. Everybody's going to jail. I don't care what it's for. As I got on a little longer, and then I kind of changed my attitude a little bit and, gave people breaks and, hey, why don't you think about what you're doing? And, let's step on a crack pipe instead of taking the crack fiend to jail, or, and then it got to the point of, it was kind of half and half, where I would take people to jail. Hey, now you're going to jail, or where I'd cut them a break.
Mhm.
So, you go through your progression.
Circumstantial.
Yeah, by far.
Like how often, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but like
Yeah.
how often did you run into like the same perpetrators over and over and over again?
A lot, because I was always in the same
Areas.
Yeah. By far.
Right on.
Yeah. So, I had to get 60 hours of college. You had to be 21 to be hired on, or if you're coming out of the military, you didn't need the college.
Yeah.
So, So yeah, I got on in April of '94. I was 22 and started my career.
And rocked it out ever since, huh?
Yeah, and good and bad, I guess. You know.
What was the first couple of years of your career like? 'Cause
So
I mean, obviously, you gotta go through a whole learning process. You go
yeah,
through the academy and then
yeah.
but
So the
but
police
but
academy
but
in
practical's
Houston's
different.
yeah, the police academy's 6 months in Houston,
Yeah.
and some departments where you have to go through an academy on your own.
Is it anything like the movie?
Yes, it's exactly just like the movie. You have your tackleberry. I mean, the stereotypes are true. You have a Michael Winslow guy who does
Yeah.
all the sound effects.
Bobcat.
Bobcat,
Oh my
and then you have Bubba Smith. So yeah, it's just like yeah. No, we weren't in dorms. Yeah, no, but DPS, the state troopers, they live in dorms and stuff. So again, each department's different on how they handle it. Some departments, it's you have to go through your own academy. So like University of Houston has a police academy that
Yeah.
you can take,
Okay.
and so you get your TCOL certification, which is your license from the state to be a peace officer. Then a department might hire you. But Houston has their own police academy.
Okay.
So you come in straight off the street for 6 months. You're going to be in the police academy learning, of course, the laws of the state, laws of the city, your general orders, your SOPs for the department, and learning how to handle crime scenes and doing all that shooting, physical fitness, all that. So
When you're going through that academy, are you get enrolled in that? Is that do you pay for that out of pocket yourself,
no,
or is that
no,
funded
you're
somehow,
paid.
or
You're paid.
you get paid to go to that academy?
Yes.
What happens if you, like, bomb out?
Well, you
You-
lose a job.
Yeah.
Yeah?
So yeah, so you're hired, and then day one you're getting a paycheck.
And you go and then they send you basically to your training.
Yeah, for 6 months you're in the academy as a cadet, and like I said, you go through, all the laws. You have the district attorney's office talk to you. You have everything. You're taught how to do your reports. Everything that it is to be an officer.
Yeah.
Also, touch up on this. I almost didn't make it out of the academy. You have these mock crime scenes that you do.
Yeah.
To learn from them, and one's like so. You had these two guys that were officer safety is what they were called, and so they would. Like one of the things was, it was a film strip and it was like a shoot, don't shoot scenarios. And so the first time, and these guys, they talk a good game and you're like, our job here is to make sure you get home every night. We're going to teach you what you need to do to go home. Because that's the most important thing is that you go home every night after the end of your shift, which is true.
Yeah.
But then when you come to find out these guys have been off the street for over 20 years and you're going to tell me how it is on the street.
Yeah, there's a little disconnect
Yeah.
there.
I mean,
Yeah.
what you did back in the 70s is not what's going on here in the mid 90s.
No.
Yeah. No, that's a totally different world.
Yeah. And, one guy, he barely did like a couple of years on the street and then he's in the academy his whole life. And you're going to tell me about policing? Don't get the hell out of here, man. So, but you come in, you don't know.
Yeah.
Us legacy, we had I heard difference from my dad. So I knew.
Yeah.
things
Oh,
were-
yeah.
Yeah.
So I knew kind of how
You've
things
got a little more of that real hand first
Yeah.
experience.
And and also to go back was my dad was a sergeant now, and he was a night shift sergeant at a station that was real close to where we lived. And of course, in the academy, you're not supposed to do any ride-alongs, right? Well, of course, my dad's going to get upset. I'm telling this though. Every Friday night in the academy, I rode with him.
Yeah.
I'd be in plain clothes just like this. He gave me a vest to wear, and then. So I knew how to do the MDT, the computers in the
Yep, yep.
car. So I knew how to run plates. I knew how to run people. I knew how to pull up calls. And so, he's like, hey, let's look. Oh, disturbance. We're running it. So I'd send a message to dispatcher, we're going to run this call. We'll check and advise, which means he's going to run it by himself. And they don't know I'm with him, of course. And so, and then we show up on this disturbance, big family disturbance or whatever. And, hey, my dad walks up, hey, this is Officer Richard, family violence. He's going to handle this. And he'd just sit back.
And let you work it.
Yeah.
So
That is
shit,
like,
man, that's like AIT. That's advanced individual training. That's that's
Yeah.
pretty impressive.
Yeah. And so, I'm dealing with it. And then if I'm screwing shit up, he would jump in and,
But it
handle
gave you real practical firsthand experience.
which of course they don't want in the
Yeah.
academy
Yeah.
because they're teaching you a certain way to do it. And then I'm coming in, well, this is the way, because when you go out, you graduate, you go through what's called the field training program, and they're like, "Hey, whatever you learn in the academy, just throw it out the window. I'm gonna
Yeah.
show you how it's done." You know,
Yep.
Well, it's
and so
yeah.
Just like any other job.
yeah,
I mean, yeah, in the medical field, we, teaching students these things, the textbook wise, but they come into the hospital and with actual patients, you're like, yeah, this is how we actually are gonna have to do it because
Practical
we don't
is
have
completely.
this
textbooks
is a
in real
guide.
life.
This is a guide, and your
Yes.
experience is going to show you how to use that guide the
Yep.
way you
Yep.
should. And so, yeah, I mean, I was chasing people down, and like I had no radio, and I'm chasing this guy down, and my dad's screaming for me, "Ah!" Like I'm over here,
Stop!
I'm thumping this guy.
God,
You know?
what would have happened if you would have gotten hurt?
Well, I mean, yeah, and that's
Yeah.
the thing. Yeah, he would have got in trouble. I would have got fired out of the academy, and
Yeah.
yeah, it would not have been a good thing. But
Did
you know,
you, was that scary for you? Like, because you're in the academy still, like being in these real life situations, or was it the whole time where you're like, I'm ready for this? Was it
I was ready.
you
I
were?
think,
Yeah.
yeah, and of course, I had the utmost respect, and my dad had was highly respected, as
Yeah.
far as I know.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, not everybody's going to like
Yeah.
who you are or how they were or whatever. But, of course, as I got on and, met the old heads that knew my dad or people that worked for my dad, they everybody loved working for my dad.
Yeah.
He was a good boss,
Yeah.
and I'm like, well, you didn't grow up with the guy either.
Yeah, and that's always it's
Yeah,
always
yeah.
true.
Oh man, your dad's the best.
You're
Man.
like,
I was like, yeah, you didn't grow up with him
he's not
either.
your dad.
Yeah, he's not your dad, And but so to go back to the original, I'm with these two guys with the shoot don't shoot stuff, and half the classes with us we're actually in our classroom, and so my deal is, and I remember this vividly, and I think this is why I was a decent cop too, is I got a real good memory of things, unless it came to IED letters, and I couldn't remember nothing, but so like the scene is like I'm walking down a hallway, and a guy pops out from the corner of a hallway, pops around at me, then jumps behind the corner so I can't see him anymore. And then I have my pistol out and I'm like, "Hey, let me see your hand, motherfucker." Sorry, I didn't mean to cuss.
No, you can
Yeah, I know,
cuss all you want. It's
I know,
totally
I know
okay.
it's Spotify, well, as soon as I say that, of course, the class laughs, right? And then the guy kind of pops out where his hands are up, but I can't see his right arm. And then, or that's when I said it. I said, "Let me see your hand, motherfucker." And then as soon as I said it, he pulls his hand out, no gun. So the thing is like, yeah, shoot, don't shoot. Do you shoot him or you not? Then you have to talk as to why you did what you did. Well, so I say I dropped the MF on the guy, and everybody laughs, and then this officer safety guy says, "Hey, that was funny. Well, did you mean it?" I'm like, if I said it, I meant it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not, oh, so it wasn't a joke. No, I mean, even though it's a shoot, don't shoot, and it's not real, you still get that adrenaline pump.
Yeah, you still have to. I mean, you're in a role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, and how, and so that was the first red flag.
Really?
Yeah. For them and me.
So
And
that red flag, so that officer noticed, like, wait,
this guy might be a problem.
Yeah, like-
too aggressive.
Too aggressive.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. He's cussing. And,
not like shoot
'Cause-
through the corner.
or yeah, or like you want me to shoot the unarmed guy or, whatever, So, but I mean, the thing is you can justify that because he already popped around at me.
Yeah.
And then he comes back
And
around.
how the hell are you supposed to know
Yeah,
if he's
yeah.
got a firearm or not?
Well, and that's the whole thing with policing is it's easy to Monday quarterback us. And it happens all the time by our chiefs, by activists, by the news media, by people but I'm making a split decision within a couple seconds.
Literally
Yeah.
life or death decisions.
Yes.
Not just your life, but the person who's potentially at the other end of your sights.
Yes.
So-
And so, I mean, that's the whole thing is it's easy to Monday morning quarterback us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
This is
I'm
what you
making
should
that.
have did. This is what you should have did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Bullshit, dude. You have no idea.
Yeah.
What would
and-
you like? Let me put you in that situation. See how you respond. Do
Yeah.
you shit your pants or do you pull the trigger without realizing you pulled the trigger?
Yeah. And so then there's another crime scene where it's other guys are doing something and we're all sitting there watching because, they break the class up in half. And so we watch, these our cadets, my classmates doing the scene and the scene's out of control. There's no control on it and stuff. And,
What do you mean?
they're not controlling the scene. They're just allowing
Just shit running everywhere.
the suspects to do, and, the guy's going, ma'am, 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 and she's like, fuck you, but, because these are officers, actors,
Yeah.
and they're just, not listening. And it's like, and then it was a disturbance or whatever. And so the guy like opens up the trunk of the car, grabs his tire, throws a spare tire out. And I'm like, man, just hook that guy up for littering now.
Okay. Yeah.
And of course, that officer safety guy hears it because we all laugh, looks and sees it's me, flag number 2.
No shit. He's like, that son of a bitch is
It's
too
that-
aggressive.
It's that guy again.
Yeah.
Right? And then what was the third one? Might have been a traffic stop that I did. And, where the guy's in his car and he's got the pistol between the seats and I'm on the passenger side. So I see it.
Yeah.
And so, there's scenarios and they want to see how you act to it. So I back up. I tell my partner to back up and we do what we call felony stop because the guy's got a pistol in his car.
Yeah.
We're not going to do the old habeas grabbers out of the vent window they used to do back in the 70s. And,
That shit don't fly anymore, man.
Yeah,
There
yeah.
are cell phone cameras.
I mean, we kind of, well, this is pre-body camera days, so we could kind of get away with it back then, but not in the academy and stuff. Well, they didn't like, we talk them out, we handcuff them, we stick them in the car, because back then there was no concealed handgun permits.
Yeah.
You couldn't drive around. There was a traveling law that said if you were traveling, you were allowed to have a gun in your car. Well, they finally, years later, the legislator is like, what does traveling mean?
Yeah, that could be
yeah, I
every
assume
day.
that
You're
was
traveling to
the-
your job every
Yeah,
day.
and it was like,
Loophole.
it's 2 counties, and it's like, well,
How do you
know,
judge that? You don't know
well,
exactly where
you
they
could
came
live in
from.
Houston in the north suburbs of like the Woodlands and drive down to Galveston, that's 2 counties. So can I carry my gun?
Yeah.
And it takes me 2 hours to go because the traffic's so bad.
Yeah.
And so they didn't like how we did that and how after we arrested him, put him in the car, I went in there and grabbed the pistol. And they're like, well, you can't do that. You illegally searched his car. And I'm like, it's in plain view. And so I argue a little bit with him. Not like, I'm like, but it was in plain view and it's against the law for him to have a pistol in his car. Is it not? So they didn't like that.
But that was logical
Yeah. But
because you
The
challenged
problem
them.
is,
Yeah.
I'm just going to say the problem is that you challenge their status quo because you think outside the box and a little more creatively
and I was already doing it the way you do it on the street.
with
Yeah.
real life experience.
Yeah, because I was doing it while I was riding with my dad.
And it's pissing them off. 'Cause
Yeah.
now they're having less control over you.
And then of course them not knowing,
Yeah.
And so we have night scenes, mock crime scenes on nights. And our pistol range was always a burglary. So everybody who ran it, it was a burglary. So you'd have to go in there and search and you'd have weapons out.
Yeah.
So you'd have to secure the weapons and they wanted to see how well you searched and made sure you didn't laser your partner with your weapon and all that. Well, so it's me and this other guy who didn't make it off the FTO program, and ours is a disturbance.
So it's not a burglary this
It
time.
is not.
Okay.
So yeah, they set me up.
And how did it go? I'm anxious. I'm curious.
I thought it went fine until the end. But so again, you're on a disturbance. Husband and ex-husband, she got the pistol range in the divorce.
Okay.
So he's there, he's wanting stuff out. And it's like, well, it's a civil matter. We're not involved. We're criminal. We cannot enforce civil law. We're not civil police. They have officers, they're called constables down in Texas that can do civil. They're the ones that serve like eviction notices.
Yeah.
And, the constables are the civil. But even that, you still can't go in there and allow this guy to go inside and grab what he wants because the court ordered it's hers.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and so my partner, he's not doing nothing. So I'm taking control. And plus I'm more of an A-type than he was. And so again, I'm taking control of the scene. I'm like, hey, you're going to have to get your own attorney again. You're going to have to go back to court and fight it in court. I'm sorry, but she doesn't want you here. She's not letting you in. You can't take anything out. It's hers. Well, I ain't leaving. No, I'm not leaving until I have it. And I'm like, well, you got to go, and finally got to the point again, because they're not going to listen
Yeah.
because they're doing it on purpose to
Push you.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
they're actors. They're
and to see how I'm going to respond.
Yeah.
So finally, I get to the point, I'm like, you got to go, dude. And he's like, well, I ain't leaving. Bam. If he does not leave, when you tell him, do you want him arrested for trespassing? Yes. Tell him, I want you off my property. Sir, you've been told to leave by the person who owns this property. You need to leave. I ain't leaving. All right. I hook him up, throw the cuffs on him. I start walking him to the car, right? Well, then, of course, as an officer, the cuffs are on too tight.
Okay.
So I'm like, oh, okay. So I start adjusting the cuffs and they're like, okay, scene's over. Well, you have your evaluators who are 2 officers on the streets that you would come across when you go through the FTO program, which I'll talk about after this. Well, they're the ones who grade you on this crime scene too. Well, I have these officer safety guys there. And then I don't know if they had a lieutenant there or somebody. Well, they all huddle, right? And
Yeah.
then the evaluator comes over to me and they all walk away, right? And then I get chewed out saying that I'm dangerous. I lost complete control. I violated this guy's rights by slamming these cuffs on him and cranking him so I crushed his wrist, that I'm gonna get people killed, myself, and I'm just like, "What the hell just happened?" I mean, like,
Yeah.
what do you expect me to do? And I'm not arguing, I'm
Yeah.
just sitting there dumbfounded. And then the zip comes up, the officer safety guy, and he's like, "Okay, you need to write a mock IED letter, internal affairs letter, as to why you violated this man's civil rights by cranking your cuffs on him."
That's a civil rights violation, having
Well,
handcuffs too tight?
well, they're saying I did it on purpose. So I caused this guy pain and discomfort, and I did it on purpose. Therefore, I violated his rights.
No shit.
So they say.
So I mean, even in training, you guys have to jump through a shit ton of hoops to essentially do the right thing.
Oh, yeah. And it's their way. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. And so I'm like, what the, I'm 2010. I'm like, what the hell just happened? You're right. And so,
Did
and
you
like I said, my dad was on night shift. And this was nights. So we did it in the evenings. And so I drove straight to the station where my dad was working. And I told him what just happened.
What'd he say?
And he's like, "Man, that's a crop. Those guys are idiots, zipper heads." And I'm like, "I got to write this letter." So of course my dad, he's been through it, and already been involved in 2 shootings in his career and other IED,
Mhm.
investigations and stuff. So he helped me write my letter and of course helped me write it well.
Yeah.
You got to be a creative writer, and I go and I give the letter in. And plus, they tell me I have to go to psychological services.
Did you ever? Because I'm thinking too, because I thought describing it, that's a logical way to handle that situation. Did you ask them at that time, like, what did I do wrong? Like,
Not,
uh,
but like when I turned in my letter to him,
yeah.
I was like, I would like to get with you and talk how I could have did this differently.
Hmm.
Apparently, because the way I did it is completely wrong. And
Did they give you an alternative method?
no,
So they're kind of like the IRS.
yeah,
They're
pretty
like,
much. This
we
is the way.
know, and we're not going to tell you. And if you don't know, then you're in trouble.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. And so I go to psych services to talk about it. And they're like, well, you said this, you dropped the motherfucker at the shoot, don't shoot. You said this, and I'm like, yeah, I said those. But I was like, I said, when I turned in my stuff, I asked them, could they talk with me how I could have did this differently?
And they didn't.
And they never got with me. So they already wrote me off.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to stop by throughtherough.net to check out our latest episodes, merchandise, and hit that donation tab to keep content coming. See you again next week.